Can I just say something about Andrea?
With Jim Martin now convicted for attempted second-degree murder, aggravated assault, using a firearm, all that's left of this case now is the sentencing. What's the penalty going to be? And this is always a bit of an intriguing question to me because it has to be proportionate to similar crimes, similar circumstances, but also needs to take into account the particular characteristics of the offender. Now, the part of sentencing that I'm looking forward to the most, the one I have the most questions about, is always the question of allocution. Allocution. A defendant has the right to allocute at sentencing, meaning to make a statement on their own behalf, but they're not obliged to do it. And so there are, frankly, many things a defendant can say after being convicted by a jury that will not only not help them, but may very well make things a lot worse. And very few things that a person who is allocuting could say that is going to actually benefit their situation. Typically speaking, if you're going to allocute, what you need to be doing is expressing remorse, regret, commitment to do better, report active steps that you've taken to overcome the problem that led to this criminal conviction. But these are precisely the types of reflective acknowledgments that domestic abusers just seem least likely to be capable of. So I'm curious to see what, if anything, we get from Jim in this sentencing hearing. So with that, guys, it is a fairly lengthy one this time. So let's go ahead and turn to it and see what we get.
All rise. The court is not to consider the open. The audience is not to consider the second.
All right, clerk, come to order, question in session. You may be seated. All right, Madam Clerk, you can call the case.
Case number 2010 CF 1677, State of Florida plaintiff versus James B. Martin, defendant.
State ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning.
Defense ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill Hancock and Christine Warren on behalf of Jim Martin.
Ms. Warren.
Yes.
Time is 9 or 8:59. The lawyers should have received by now a copy of the pre-sentence investigation. It's in Judge Rodriguez's office, so that was the delay. So if you need a few more minutes to look it over, take them. Much of the information is what we heard during the trial and what we learned from testimony during the trial. So there's nothing new.
I just have a couple. We've reviewed it. The state's reviewed it. Ryan Vecchio, Assistant State Attorney for the state. The state has reviewed it and have a couple corrections to it whenever the court would want to.
Well, let me make sure that both of you have, and then we'll go through it.
Nothing like a pre-sentence investigation that comes in at the last minute and you're supposed to acknowledge it, stipulate it to it, be able to contest it, like with no notice. Super obnoxious when that happens.
We're here for the sentencing case of State of Florida versus James B. Martin. The lawyers have received letters and emails that I received from family members, and the originals have been filed in the court file. Some I got by email. I photocopied them or printed them and put them in the court file. Others I scanned and sent to the lawyers, so that you should have everything that I've reviewed. So that's all of the written material. You now have the pre-sentence investigation. I also have the cases that Mr. Vecchio provided along with his memorandum. So you should have everything that I have now. As far as the sentencing, is there testimony or evidence you wish to present, state first, then the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Whenever the court's ready, we have 3 witnesses to testify and 1 letter I received this morning to read.
All right.
Would you like to take that now?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, the first witness that we have is Daniel Lait.
Have the witness come forward.
And would you like to witness in the box or the podium?
Come forward.
Daniel Lait, if I
The
remember
other
correctly, was
witnesses here,
the
or-
family friend.
Judge, I'm fine with them all being here.
Yep.
Mr.
The one who met them
Hancock?
at the
That's
airport.
fine, Judge.
Sir, what is your name?
My name is Daniel Lait.
Spell your first and last name.
Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, Lait, L-A-I-T.
Face the court clerk to my left, raise your right hand and be sworn.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
We're to swear them to
You
speak from the
state
podium.
your name.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, again, my name is Daniel Lait. I'm a friend of the victim, Christy Martin. I was friends with both Jim and Christy since 1996. My friendship ended with Jim Martin on November 23rd, 2010, the day he tried to kill his wife, my friend, Christy. As I testified in this courtroom, Jim was a very controlling person. He rarely let Christy out of his sight. He dictated what she should think, feel, say, where, and even how to act, psychologically abusing her for years. I watched in silence because I never thought it was my place to get involved in their marriage. Christy has begun the long road to recovery. She is happy now and free to live life without restraints or fear. Gone is the mask of anxiety, angst, and worry. Thank God she is a survivor and here today. I will not relive the events of November 23rd, 2010. As we know, Jim brutally attacked Christy, repeatedly stabbing, terrorizing, and shooting Christy, leaving her for dead on the bedroom floor. Only by the grace of God did Christy's life not end that day. In closing, the Jim I know, if ever a free man, given the opportunity, even at 100 years old, would try to kill her again. I respectfully ask Your Honor to impose the maximum penalty under the law, life in prison. Thank you, sir.
The state of Florida has no other questions of the witness.
Mr. Hancock,
No questions, Judge.
did you want to file a written statement or not?
Yes.
May I approach the court?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Lait, we're just going to write your name.
Sure.
If you're done, sir, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Give him life. If he gets out, he'll try to kill her again. Scary stuff, and he's probably
Your Honor,
not
I was
wrong.
provided this morning with a copy of a statement from Stacey Adams. Ms. Adams is present in the courtroom, but has asked that we read her statement into the record, if that's acceptable to the court.
Yes, sir.
May I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Dear Judge Thompson, I am writing you with the hope you will take into consideration some of my experiences with Jim Martin as you hand down his sentence today. I met Jim Martin and Christy in the spring of 1997 when I joined their boxing gym on Robinson Street here in Orlando. I joined the gym with the intentions of losing weight, so I paid a trainer who worked at their gym to train me. During my sessions with the trainer, I would regularly see Jim and Christy as my workouts would often overlap Christy's. Over time, we began to talk a bit and eventually developed what I at one point considered a pretty good friendship. Over the years, I traveled out of town and out of state to see many of Christy's fights take place. On the occasion where I did not actually go to see her fight, it wasn't uncommon for me to house sit for them. Over the 5 years I was in their lives, I saw Jim regulate the actions of Christy and those around her. He also kept a very tight rein on any friendships Christy may have had. I never saw Christy have a single friendship of her own. If Jim was not part of the relationship, there was no relationship. In fact, Jim was always right there anytime we were together. He barely let her out of his sight. I quickly realized Jim was in control of everything involving Christy and tried to control what people around her said and did as well. I can recall very clearly an incident where Christy stepped out of the room for a moment and Jim began telling me when she returned he was going to say some things to her and then asked me a question. Jim also told me what my answer to that question would be. His telling me to do this frustrated me, but I reluctantly went along with him out of fear of what he would do if I didn't. On another occasion, I heard Jim instruct one of the guys from their circle to go to the Western Union and send money to Jim's family up north. It was apparent this was being done without Christy's knowledge. These were not isolated incidents. He exhibited this type of scheming behavior frequently behind Christy's back. The circle around Christy changed a lot through my time with them. Jim would keep people close and involved as long as he thought he had control over them or could use them for something. If he had any doubts about their ability to be controlled, they were no longer useful to him, and he quickly ousted them from the circle. Jim's actions made it obvious to me he saw people as disposable items. At the beginning of 2002, I became disposable. My ties with Jim and Christy were severed after Jim humiliated me in their gym. On that day, Jim accused me of being a lesbian in front of a gym full of people. I began to cry and told Jim his statement was not accurate, but he continued to speak with me as if it were true. It was very clear I was no longer welcome in the gym. Christy was nearby, and I looked at Christy with tears in my eyes for some sort of explanation. She had no response to Jim's treatment of me. I never spoke to Jim or returned to the gym after that final incident and hadn't spoken to Christy until hearing about the attack on the news. Sadly, when I learned of it, I wasn't surprised, because I always knew from firsthand experience how calculating, controlling, and manipulative he is. I knew his biggest focus was always to stay in control of Christy. Upon hearing on the news what led to Jim's attack on Christy, I reflected on my final day in the gym and was finally able to answer the question of why Christy had nothing to say to me then or during the 9 years after. How can someone who had a relationship with another woman prior to meeting Jim and who will tell you now she is always gay had not a single word to say to me when Jim brought me to tears in such a public setting, alleging I was gay? The answer was simple. It was because Jim completely controlled Christy. And in the end, when Jim realized he was no longer able to control her, she, like everyone else that passed through his life, became disposable too. It is my belief if Jim is ever let out of jail, he would undoubtedly seek vengeance against Christy or anyone else he feels has helped Christy in her fight against him. I hope with that in mind, Jim will receive the full penalty of the charges he was found guilty of. Thank you for your time and consideration, Stacey Adams.
Spell her first and last name.
Staceyadams. And may I approach the clerk so this is filed with the
Yes.
court file.
Jim's got his chin up.
Since
Notice
she
that, the
did not
defiant.
elect to testify,
defiant
Mr.
chin up.
Hancock, do you wish to respond or ask that she come forward?
No, Your Honor.
Said you had 3 witnesses, sir?
Yes, Judge, I have 2 other live witnesses. The next is Sherry Lusk.
Let's hear it, Sherry.
All right, ma'am, raise your right hand, face the court, record your sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
And I do.
Thank you.
What is your name?
Sherry Lusk, L-U-S-K.
Spell your first and last name.
It's S-H-E-R-R-Y.
And last name.
Lusk, L-U-S-K.
All right, sir, or ma'am, if you have a statement.
Yes. I've known Christy longer than anyone in this room. Upon reconnecting with Christy, it didn't take long to reveal the nightmare of abusive circumstances that she had been dealing with for 20 years. In the last 19 months, it has become apparent that these statements were true. In early conversations with Christy, she admitted how miserable she was, completely addicted to the cocaine Jim supplied, and that she had become hopeless. She knew she was sure to die by his hand or her own. She confirmed suspicion that Jim had blackmailed her into the marriage, and it was a lie. I asked her repeatedly, "Why don't you leave him?" She said she would never live through it. He would hunt her down until she was harmed or disabled permanently. In the weeks leading up to seeing Christy, she became increasingly suspicious of potential harm coming to her. So much so, she told me she had never ever been knocked out in the boxing ring. But on several occasions, she was knocked out at home And when cleaning up the blood, she left blood in a certain area in her bathroom so that she could be identified if her body was missing. My concern, my concern for her safety grew enormously, and thus arranged to meet her in St. Augustine on November 18th of 2010. Jim immediately sent out pictures of sexual content of his current wife and current world champion to her mother, to her aunts and uncles, family members, friends, members of the media, and the Boxing Hall of Fame. These text messages and email threats continued to come over the next days as he continued to threaten that he would end her. On Monday, November 22nd, I met Christy in Daytona Beach. By Jim Martin's own confession, he followed us there. On Tuesday, November 23rd, Jim Martin's threats became so intense, Christy knew her life was in danger. The last words she said to me before she left is, "This motherfucker is gonna shoot me." Christy arrived at their home and took a nap. After napping, she woke up and called me. I clearly heard Jim Martin calmly tell Christy that he had something to show her. Given that, with the ample opportunity, he had not acted against us the night before, the fact that time had passed for her to lay down and take a nap, and that his voice was calm, I could have never imagined the horror of what he was preparing to do slowly and methodically to torture Christy over the next hour. He planned and carried out his attack with many weapons and thought he had indeed taken her life. While she lay on the floor, bleeding to death, taking her last breath, he took a shower and made sure he got his jewelry on. It's well documented in this court all the times Jim Martin stabbed Christy. It's well documented that he shot Christy. What I'll never forget is that she also had her ear ripped nearly off and had to have stitches. I'll never forget the blood that filled her entire head from all the gashes. She had so many life-threatening injuries, but I won't forget the stab going down the right side of her neck toward her jugular that also would have ended her. I can't forget how Jim Martin intended to maim and permanently keep Christy from her job and her way of earning a living, which is boxing. He tried to make sure she couldn't walk. If you look at the back of your calf and flex it, everything you see was cut off. He never intended for her to walk again. And thanks only to God, not only can she walk but run, but every day she lives with the scar of his intentions. I still have nightmares seeing this. I still have trouble being in the emergency room when she was so close to death that they couldn't even work on her leg. It was insignificant. I still see this at night. If there were any sense or any justice or any rationale to be made of the actions that occurred on November 23rd, Jim Martin would have called 911 and ensured his wife did not die. Jim Martin would have honorably attempted to contact a law enforcement officer or a lawyer or someone to clarify the circumstances leading to Christy's near death. Yet instead, he fled for 7 days with his jewelry. If there was something we missed or an injustice that needed set straight, Jim Martin had every chance to look at the jurors and speak, and he did not. Christy has spent 19 months discovering and uncovering the many lies Jim used to hold her emotional prisoner. It has been a sad road watching a great champion, such as Christy, spend more than a year being tortured all night with nightmares that would leave her screaming out, "He shot me," in a full sweat, or running in the bed, screaming out, he's killing me, Jim's trying to kill me." Many nights. Her lung was collapsed in 2 places. It makes it difficult for her to run outside still to this day. She additionally has to run in well-monitored, undisclosed places due to her fear factor. She had always run the neighborhoods and in her local gym, but she cannot do that anymore. Many days have been spent inside during this period of time with few public appearances. Christy has difficulty going into wide crowds and open spaces because she gets very anxious. Jim has told her all her life that he had friends, that if he didn't kill her, they would. Christy's attended counseling ongoing since this has happened to get through this tragedy and to deal with the demons coming from having PTSD. Jim Martin had intended to cause Christy harm for several days. He texted and sent pictures documenting his intent to do harm over a 5-day period. Jim Martin called many people and told them that he intended to do harm to Christy over that 5-day period. Jim Martin even called Christy's mother and told her if she didn't return, he was going to harm his wife. When Christy did return on Tuesday, November 23rd, after 5 days of threats, Jim Martin shot, stabbed her, cut her calf nearly off, and did exactly what he told he was going to do. This man deserves no sympathy. He thinks he owned a human, and when it didn't obey, he decided he had the right to punish it. He spent him a minimum of 5 days preparing for his assault. He attempted to murder his own wife, not by stabbing her, not just by standing over her and point-blank shooting her over an hour period of time, but by letting that human slowly bleed to death while he colored his hair and showered. These actions are the actions of a cool, callous, soulless individual that has no regard for life other than his own. Please have him pay for the actions that he planned. He should receive no less than life in prison. Thank you.
State of Florida has no other questions of Ms. Lusk.
Questions from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, do you want to file your statement?
It's edited and marked up.
All right, thank you. You can have a seat.
Smart of the defense not to question these witnesses.
Your Honor, at this time, the state of Florida's final witness is Ms. Martin. Would you like her to address the court now?
Yes.
Now Christy.
Raise your right hand, face the clerk, and be sworn.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Christine Salters. Christine, Salters, Salters.
May we proceed to?
You may. Are you going to ask her questions?
Just one or two.
All right.
You have an opportunity to give your impact statement, as we've discussed. Have you prepared a written statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that something that you would like to read to the judge?
I'm going to read because I don't want to get off track or forget anything that I may want to bring to the judge's attention.
Well, if you're going to, why don't you just have a seat to the right, ma'am?
May we proceed, Judge?
You may.
Go ahead, Chris.
Judge Thompson, Jim threatened my life for over 20 years. I have felt concern for my life since the attack on November 23rd. He repeatedly told me that if I ever left him, he would kill me. Over the 20 years we were married, Jim said a lot of things that I didn't believe. But for some reason, I knew that his threat of killing me was true. Jim had told me many times that he had lived his life and was not afraid of going to prison for killing me. He would say he didn't have much longer to live anyway. These threats started from the beginning of our marriage. He would also tell me that he knew people that could, quote, unquote, make me disappear. Because of these threats, or as Jim referred to them as promises, I continuously look over my shoulder. For example, every time my car starts, as I'm getting into my car, I fear that if someone is coming after me. I fear the next shot will be the one I can't live through. As the trial grew closer, I begged Ryan and Deb to please tell me who was visiting Jim, as well as who he was talking to. I feared for my own life and didn't know whom to trust and who not to trust. I went as far as to beg Ryan, even if my own mother was talking to Jim. This is how distrustful I had become of people. I didn't know who to trust because Jim had convinced me the whole world was against me. As I have come to find out, this is not the case at all. I have had terrible nightmares since being stabbed and shot by Jim. I dream about being shot and left on the bedroom floor to die. I will dream that he jumped out of a closet to shoot me. The scenarios change, but the outcome is always the same. Me on the floor, shot and bleeding to death. Many times, I have woke up screaming, "He shot me." I've tried since the attack to keep my residence confidential. I've asked owners of boxing gyms not to tell anyone that I'm working out at their place. I have not attended big fights for fear the gym would have someone there seeking me out to cause me harm or death. After the attack and being out of Jim's control for the past 19 months, I realized that I didn't even know what I wanted to watch on TV. I didn't even know what I wanted to order at a restaurant or eat at home. I had lost all of my self-worth. I was simply Jim's puppet. I was conditioned to do what he thought I should do at any given situation. Also, I knew that when the gym was broken into, the gym had orchestrated this break-in from jail. This was confirmed by two people that were speaking to him as well as me. There was nothing obviously missing, but as some of my friends looked, they realized there was a trapdoor in the ceiling. Upon being told this news, I knew that Jim had hidden DVDs of me during sex acts and high on cocaine in the gym. Jim had tried to sell me these DVDs about a month prior to the attack. I refused, saying that I knew him, and he would have a couple more copies. These acts were committed while I was high and not to be viewed by anyone else. Jim has tried to release these DVDs for monetary gain to the media. This also has been confirmed by a mutual acquaintance. Jim would show Amy Copeland the live video of me while I was home alone on cocaine, and they were together at the gym. My brother found a secret recording device in the home after the attack, confirming my suspicions that Jim was video and audio recording me without my knowledge. I felt Jim was recording me when he was gone. I tried to find the camera by looking at the vents throughout the house, but my attempts failed. Jim increased my suspicion when he said something about me looking in the vents. I knew at this time that he had a camera. The secret videotaping was not a new tactic used by Jim. I found a tape of me getting in and out of the shower at my own mom and dad's home that was videotaped before we were married in 1991. Again, I found a tape in 97 of me naked in my own pool at my own house, actually with information from one of the guys from the gym, that Jim had been showing this tape to other fighters. It has been confirmed to me also that Jim sent out incriminating pictures of me during the weekend before he shot and stabbed me. Jim had also shown Chris Guerrera photos personally and asked both Dan Lait and Bruce Brasher to look at photos of me in sex acts, but both refused. He sent these photos to my mother, as well as people in the boxing community, with the intent of ruining my career. But just the opposite happened. People asked me why Jim was so fascinated with penises. I often had this thought myself. Jim would come home from the gym, giving me a description of guys' bodies with emphasis on the size of their penis. I would tell them that I didn't want to hear this information, that I thought of these guys as my sons.
That's kind of cold, right?
Also, at one point, Jim had convinced me that I was crazy and that I needed to start seeing a counselor. I did this, and as soon as I started feeling a little stronger and a little better about myself, he made sure that the cocaine became more prominent and that I stopped seeing the counselor. Jim controlled what I said and who I spoke to in public throughout my boxing career. He would tell me when and when not to speak to Don King. He wants to take all the credit for my career, but actually it was Jesse Robinson who took and signed me with Don King. Jim never ran 1 mile or took one punch for the entire 58 fights I've had. Look at me, Jim. Look at me. From the beginning, I financially supported you, your family, and any and all of your significant others. And the only repayment I asked for many times was for you to let me go. Not harmed physically, emotionally, or professionally. How was I repaid for taking care of you all those years? Blackmailed, addicted to coke, you sharing what I thought was private sex acts, but what really stands above all these things is you leaving me for dead on the bedroom floor. You coloring your hair and taking a shower, leaving me there, dead, stabbed, shot, bleeding. When I finally was able to run out of the house while you were in the shower coloring your hair, thank God a motorist stopped by and picked me up and took me to the emergency room. The doctors there, after seeing my leg, they wondered how I walked, how I was able to run out of the house. Was I ever going to walk again? That's what they were wondering. But when you saw, before I ran out, before you saw that I wasn't dying fast enough from just the stab wounds, you shot me. You shot me with my own gun, basically point blank. And guess what, motherfucker? I walked out.
Ooh.
I walked out.
Damn.
By the grace of God. By the grace of God. I was able to get up and get out. And get out of your clutches.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to object to confrontation. This is for her.
Sustain, ma'am, just give your
Of course he's objecting.
As your attorney has said, that I only had one stab wound, I wish you would have stood up and corrected him and told him, no, you stabbed me 4 times, 3 times on my side. The reason the doctor maybe didn't notice those were stab wounds would be because they put tubes through those wounds, through those stab wounds, to reinflate my lung, to try to keep me alive. You know, you used to brag to your brother about the toughest decision you ever had to make.
Just a moment, ma'am, sir.
I object to confrontation. This isn't the time for that. This is impact, and if she would be...
That's fine. Sir, I just have one last thing, and it has nothing to do with...
All right, sustaining objection, go ahead.
The tattoo on my back above the bullet hole sums it up perfectly. I now have freedom because God has a plan for me. And Sherry gave me a reason to live, get off the coke, and get away from you. Judge, I hope that you'll see fit to sentence Jim to the maximum of life in prison.
I have no other questions of the witnesses.
Guess what, motherfucker?
Ms. Salters, you have a fight, a major fight coming up next month, correct?
I do.
And since November 23rd of 2010, you've also had a major fight in California, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've trained for those fights?
Yes, sir, that's what I do.
Okay. And your testimony during the trial was at the point you went home on November 23rd, you had pretty much decided if you were going to be killed, you were going to be killed.
Yes, sir.
And you were given options by many friends of not having to return at that point in time.
Yes, sir.
And I asked you during the trial, and I'm not sure you answered, but at that point in time, had you pretty much decided that you wanted to commit suicide by your husband?
No, sir. I, at that time, decided I'm either going to live through what this person can dish out, and I use person lightly, or I'm going to live through it, or I'm going to die. I was to that point in my life where it didn't matter to me anymore, really. I chose to just get away from Jim. That's what I needed to do. And if that was to live through whatever, the shooting, the stabbing, whatever he could dish out for me, that's what I was going to do.
But your friends had offered you options and an ability to do that by staying with them or staying other places where you would not have to return to the residence, correct?
Yes, sir, but that didn't give anybody the right to shoot or stab me.
And you had also made arrangements with Mr. DeBobian to file divorce so that all of the assets would be divided, correct?
No, sir, I had spoken to Hugo DeBobian about getting divorced.
So you had your exit, but you decided to return on that day.
I don't understand what you mean by an exit. I owned the home. I mean, the bank actually owned the home. I had paid for all the cars. I had paid for everything there with my own blood, sweat, and tears. So I just went back to my house, my property, sir, not expecting to be shot and stabbed. Well, actually, not hoping to be shot and stabbed.
But expecting it.
Not hoping to be shot and stabbed or killed.
But you have said you expected it.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. These are argumentative questions.
You can answer.
You can answer.
I understand what that means. Yes, sir, I probably did expect it because I had been guaranteed and promised for 20 years that he would kill me. And that's what he tried to do. But like everything else, most everything else, he came up short.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Vessia?
No,
This
sir,
one?
thank you.
Thank you.
Don't think that was a helpful cross. Give Jim leniency because she went home. Oh,
No
oof.
further testimony.
Don't know about that.
Any testimony or evidence or letters or statements from Mr. Hancock or Ms. Lauren?
Judge, at this time, Ms. Martin would like to address the court. I believe the court has referred to the letters the court has received, both
Yes, sir.
from Ms. Salter's family and from Mr. Martin's family. And I would just point out, in regards to those letters, that some of the letters in favor of Mr. Martin do come from Ms. Salter's family.
Yes, sir.
And, the state has had an opportunity to review the letters, and we don't have any comment as to their content, other than to point out that all letters from persons were those not actually here at trial, who had an opportunity to observe the testimony.
Imagine having a family that supports the guy
I just wanna be sure that
who
y'all
tried
got
to murder
copies
you.
of it.
Yes.
It's in the court file.
Yes, sir.
So you know who they came from, the relationship to Mr. Martin and to Ms. Salter.
Yes, we checked the court file last evening.
All right.
Judge, Ms. Martin has requested if we could take a short break for him to use the restroom.
Yes,
before
sir.
he
Let's
addresses
take a
the
short
court.
break, lawyers. Court's in a short recess. Court deputies take charge of the defendant.
So it sounded like you said Jim wants to make a statement. That seems highly
Yes, Your Honor.
imprudent.
Would you like Mr. Martin to take the stand, Judge?
Yes, sir. please.
Oh, yep, he's gonna do it. Oh, boy. We can hear about his victimhood.
Sir, raise your right hand, face the court clerk, and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Give your first and last name, and then spell your name for the court.
James Victor Martin, Martin.
And spelling your first name,
James.
And Mr. Martin, you and I have discussed that this is your opportunity to address the court, and you've indicated that there is some things you want the court to know.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and now is your time to talk to the court.
Yeah. Well, does Christy leave the courtroom, sir?
Sir?
Is Christy?
You're to address the judge.
Oh, okay. Your Honor, I didn't make out a great big long list like everybody else did, because when you tell the truth, you don't need to write down everything.
Oh, boy.
I wasn't coming up here today to base Christy. I was coming up here to tell the truth. Okay? I control nothing, and I mean nothing, in our life outside of the boxing ring. Inside the boxing ring, I controlled everything. That was my job as a coach, as any coach, a basketball coach, football coach. I controlled everything that I could and make sure Christy wouldn't lose a fight. Okay? Like I said, I didn't get up here to base Christy. If there was any films made, which I guess I made a mistake by not airing the plea of self-defense, a lot of things we couldn't enter in. But you know, Christy, don't tell them the time that the Barry acid that she threw on me when we was out by the swimming pool.
Oh,
She
God.
don't tell the time. We couldn't get a chance to tell the 2 times that we were being sued for Christy beating up 2 other women, which is on record, for assault and battery, 2 charges, that we were being sued because she lost her temper. Them times didn't come up. The times that come up, that we even discussed in front of a couple of boys at the gym before we were ever married, that Christy shot over my head with the gun one time when we were out doing some detective work for another firm. She didn't tell about the time when I walked off from her when we were getting an argument. She took a gun and shot over the top of my head. That never came up. If any films were ever made of Christy, Christy filmed the films.
How is the lawyer thinking this is a good idea? It didn't come up. She was on the stand. She was on the stand. Didn't ask her about any of that, did ya? Oh, I mean, the persistent blaming is just unbelievable. Christy made the films. How unfair for him to be held accountable for sharing them with randos in the media and at the Boxing Hall of Fame. And poor Christy to have her own family still supporting this piece of trash. Oh, man, unbelievable.
And they disappeared. They were in Christy's hands. I think I can come up with one of them, and Christy is operating the camera. Not Jim Martin, Christy. I wasn't even allowed to call my girls. Christy would have a fit, so I chose between Christy and my children that I would not call unless I would sneak and call them once in a while. And when she found it on the telephone, then I was in big trouble. Outside the ring, I was scared of Christy, you know, because I never wanted to do anything to make her mad. I didn't control anything outside the ring, you know. And the records show that she was stabbed one time, and that's when we were fighting over the gun and fighting over the knife, you know. And she wasn't shot point blank with 9mm because there'd be a hole in you, huge hole in you, not where it glanced off the floor. And
Where we heard that before? Oh, it's impossible. Yes, couldn't be. Why? Because of reasons that are bullshit. You shot her point blank with a 9mm. 9mm aren't really made to, like, explode people. Wild.
fighting over the gun. I took off from the house because when I went back in the room to call 911 for the 3rd time, Christy was gone. I ran through the house looking for her, and then I got thinking, Christy's got the gun.
Call 911 for the 3rd time. Where's the fucking phone calls? What a lying sack of shit. I mean, this is a denial rant for the ages. I can't believe the lawyer has let him do this. You called 911 twice. Gotta think there's no evidence of that, because it sure would have been in your interest for you to put it on. Tried to call 911 the 3rd time. Why the fuck did you stop? He really does think we're all idiots. He thinks the judge is an idiot and is just going to buy all this because the words are coming out his mouth. He thinks we're all idiots, that we don't know how easy this would have been to verify and present on his behalf in support of the self-defense claim that, sorry to remind you, sir, but you did in fact present. But since your cowardly ass didn't testify, You didn't get your instruction, but you did. You did try to raise that. Oh my God, I'm ready to be super done with this guy.
Me to leave the house. So I left the house. I was in a coma a few months before that for 14 days. They didn't think I was going to live or die in the hospital when I had open heart surgery. You know, when I ran and I hid, when I passed out, when I crawled to the shed and passed out, that's where I lied until I woke up.
Nobody believes that.
Which was almost 5 or 6 days later. I called a friend of mine to tell me, take me to an attorney and let me turn myself in. Like I say, I didn't have anything written out. This is coming, so we were together 24/7, both of us. Nobody stayed with anybody 24/7 if they love each other. That's impossible. We were together 24/7.
Oh, he's scared of her, but he's still romanticizing this whole, she couldn't get the fuck away, she couldn't breathe for 20 years. That's his defense. She was around me for that long, therefore she loved me. Therefore I didn't abuse her. It's just insane abuser logic.
People at the gym seen Christy go off on me. They never see me go off on Christy. Before we even got married, she knocked one of my teeth out. That was the same night she showered my head. Also, we have a picture where I was trying to take a gun away from Christy. Was trying to shoot me about 4 or 5 years ago. A bullet hole in the closet, which we have a picture of. Which we couldn't bring up during trials. There's a lot of doors that we couldn't open. I am very sorry what happened on November.
Nobody believes you.
In November, I'm very sorry for that day, and I apologize. I should have just turned, walked off, and whatever happened, what happened? I got stabbed. I should have just turned and walked away. I never really would have turned her into the police because that's not me, because I loved her so much.
Oh my
The
God.
ground that Christy walked on.
She's the bad guy for going to the police, and he got stabbed, and there's no medical record of it at the hospital. It's crazy. It really is crazy to see people like this in action. Isn't it? Just no correspondence with reality, no theory of mind. How other people who've watched this entire case and all the evidence and seen what choices were made by whom and so forth. No theory of mind for how they're going to process all this. Just take it as an entitlement. That he says it, therefore we will believe it. He was stabbed. No fucking medical evidence, even though he's in the hospital, but he says so. Actually thinks his word is entitled to more than what doctors treating him observed. Some superficial scrapes and stuff. Other than that big ass nasty gash on his hand. The passed out for a week. Oh, my Lord. It's crazy. It's crazy to just see people this disconnected. Reveal how completely out of touch they are with reality.
When I'd come home, even in the depositions, she said where she was paranoid. She took cocaine so much, and that's in the depositions. Said she would go outside with her 9mm at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and look around the yard. I would go outside and say, Christy, please come in before you shoot somebody. She said, there's somebody out here spying on us. You got somebody spying on us. I would always say, no, honey, I don't have anybody out here spying on us. Please come in the house or I'm going to go to the gym and stay all night. I would get in the car. I would go to the gym. If she did not come in the house, within a half an hour, she called me and says, are you coming home? And I'd say, did you put the gun away? Are you in the house? I'm going to. I said, if you do, I'll come home. If you don't, I'm not. People at my gym knew that. They knew I was there the next morning. I had a couple of people I did confide in because I was scared myself, and they was afraid that Christy would shoot me,
Oh, sure. That's why they all came out to testify
I'm very
for
sorry
you.
for what happened. I wish I'd just been man enough to just turn my back and walk off, and what happened, happened. I've had a couple of people get a hold.
What happened, happened. How do you like that? How do you like that? What happened, happened. As if it's just completely beyond his control. Just a thing, just an unfortunate destiny that befell. What happened, happened. That's probably one of the most explicit disavowals of accountability that I think I may have heard in an allocution. Well, Your Honor, I realize I've just been convicted of attempted murder, serious felony. But what happened, happened. After this long diatribe, bringing up all this stuff, hiding behind, oh, there's people at the gym. Where have we heard all this stuff before? Anybody getting Amber Heard vibes from this? Remember, all the other people saw, and I confided in the other people, and she did all these other things that there's no evidence of and no witnesses for, and oh man, they really are all the same.
Told me to do a book and do a movie. The story, the marriage with Christy outside of boxing. And I give them some answers that they didn't like. They said, well, we want you to show something negative. We want you to be hostile. And I said, how can you be hostile from somebody that's always been your hero? Christy was my hero in the gym and more outside the gym and in the gym. Her mother and I had a real close relationship. Also, I want to say, when I come home at nighttime, a lot of times she would have the gun on her. She would have the gun on her. I said, Christy, what you got the gun on for? Well, I think there's people outside. This after I come home from the gym like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, it'd still be daylight. Also, when I come home from the gym, she would have a dildo on. I said, Christy, what are you doing? But she'd always do it like when she was on cocaine, I said, Christy, what are you doing? What are you doing? She said, well, let's go get another woman or another guy and party with them. And I said, no, we can't do that, I said, I am jealous about that. When we would go to Las Vegas, she got more hugs, more kisses. If I got that many hugs and kisses, she would throw a fit. And I would even the people would always say to me, would you take a picture of us? Yeah, I'll take a picture of you. Because she was doing her job, what she should have been doing. And as far as the situation with Don King, you hate to say things when people are not here, but Christy even told me herself that he made passes at her. The same as Christy and Dan Lait would go play handball. And she would always ask me to come and play handball. I said, no, go by yourself. Go by yourself. Get away from me. No, I want you to go because Dan made a pass at me. I said,
My God, this is just a crazy smear dump. A crazy smear dump. Everybody now makes passes at her, and he's still hung up on it. How do you get to, I have my life on the line here, and I think what the judge needs to know is that Don King once made a pass at her. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? It's like he thinks he's going to come up with the formula to just switch everything over. And now the judge is going to see, oh yeah, wow, Christy really is bad. I guess that makes it okay that you shot her and stabbed her. Why don't you just go home now and learn your lesson? How the defense lawyer has not shut him up, interrupted, broke in, some questions, perhaps, redirect him a little. I will never understand, because this is a fucking train wreck.
Said, no, he did not. Said, Dan made a pass at me. You know, I said, and then what are you going to go play for? She said, well, he apologized. We squared it away, but I'd feel more comfortable if you would come with me. And I said, okay, I would. Sometimes I'd still say, go ahead and go. Dan's okay. Dan's cool. You know, Dan's all right person. You know, but in our marriage, I had nothing to say outside the ring. You know, not whatsoever. I'm so glad we spent 20 years together. Like I say, I really didn't get up here to bash Christy, but I still have that love for her. But if she's more happy with another woman than she is me, you know, more power to her. I've never been a violent person. You never say I ever hit her or anything like that, because I didn't, you know.
She did say that, Jim. As a matter of fact, she said the first time she came into your gym, you broke her ribs. Yeah, she said that. Uh-huh. We all heard it. Don't know what fucking universe you're living in where you missed that part. But we heard it. About her, about you punching her, knocking her out. We heard that. So the trying to rewrite what we didn't hear, not gonna fly. Not gonna fly with this listener, Jim. Not an easy one to gaslight, and you're not a good gaslighter. This is really fucking pathetic.
I've never been a violent person in any of my marriages. I definitely wouldn't, if I didn't think so much over the day she threw battery acid on me, I got marks on my hands and feet where she done, I would have gone to the police, but I couldn't do it. The day she got the gun out and fired the gun, I would have gone to the police. I did not do it. You know, the day she knocked my tooth out, I would have gone to the police, but I had so much love for her, I could not do nothing like that. I probably don't have many years to live. You know, I mean, I'm a diabetic. You know, I got, I've had a open heart surgery and stuff.
Jim, how old are you?
I'm 68, be 69 in December.
And on the day that this happened, November 23rd in 2010, your gun collection was at Scott Selkirk's.
Yes, I took all my guns a couple of weeks before, which I had 2-3 different times down to Scotty's when Christy would get this gun and that gun. So I took all my guns, there were 3 guns left in the house. All 3 of them was registered in Christy's name. I took my guns to Scotty's house because if I took her guns like I did one time before, all of our guns, she raised so much cane with me. And I thought, well, I can keep track of 3 guns, but I can't keep track of, all the guns.
How many?
Every gun in that house belonged to Christy.
Was there a fear issue involved in that?
I'm sorry, sir?
Was there a fear issue? Is that why you did that?
Yes, because like I say, I could keep track of 3 guns, but I couldn't keep track of all of our guns. She slept with the gun underneath her side of the bed. Underneath her side of the bed.
Jim, during trial, there was a lot made about your trip to Daytona when you called Miss Martin on the telephone. Can you tell the court why you went to follow her to Daytona?
Well, first of all, she told me Sherry left. She told me Sherry Lusk left. and she said there was no relations with Sherry. So if Sherry really left, Christy was doing coke. I also thought she was caught up in a little drug deal. So I went to see if she was really telling me the truth, and I did not follow her to Daytona. I went to Daytona first. Christy went to get a cell phone, and on my way back from Daytona, I thought, well, if Christy is going to go see Sherry or do a drug deal, we're going to pass each other. And then I'll know if she's telling the truth. I turned around, and when she went on by me, I turned around, probably about 10 miles down the road, never caught up with her, and I didn't speed. I went by the hotel that Christy and I stayed in, and her mom and dad stays in every year when they come to Daytona, and she wasn't there, so I went on down to make a turnaround. And I believe it was the very next hotel or the next hotel right there. I seen her yellow Corvette, which I thought was her yellow Corvette, but that's not the only yellow Corvette around. So I parked across the street. I walked up there. As I walked up, Sherry and Christy was walking out of the hotel room toward the ocean, which I would be behind them. I did not approach them. I did not holler at him. I did not say anything to him. I got back in my car, and I headed straight back to Orlando. And she called me on the phone about 5 or 10 minutes later and said, "Did you call me earlier?" And I said, no, I called you a couple times and talked to you, but I haven't called you since then. And I said, "But I seen you and Sherry." "No, you didn't." I said, "Well, I was close enough to touch you," or almost, And she says, "No." She said, "Sherry's gone." I said, "No, Sherry's not gone. I seen you with Sherry." She said, "What did Sherry have on?" I said, "I don't know what Sherry had on." I said, "But she had a purple backpack on." She said, "Well, you're right. You did see us." I said, "When you left, I told you if you wanted another woman over me, just tell me. Just don't lie about it and go out and have an affair. When I'm sitting home, just tell me the truth. I can accept the truth." I said, "Because I have to accept the truth." I said, I've got to accept the truth.
Was any of the reason you went there for her safety?
I went there for her safety because if she was dealing in drugs, which has been talked about in the gym with somebody else, which I'm not going to mention the name, with somebody else in the gym, I wanted to go there to make sure Christy did not get hurt.
And that's what you told Detective Evans about that
I told
situation?
Detective Evans about that, and then Detective, I can't think what the other lady's name was.
Jim, what happened to you during the 7 days immediately after the attack on November 23rd?
I'm sorry, sir.
The 7 days before you...
Yeah, were you hid in the shed?
...found you, what happened?
Okay, Scotty lives catty corner across the street, so I thought I run to Scotty's house, after I found out Christy was gone with the gun. I ran to Scotty's house. When I couldn't make it to Scotty's house, I fell down, and that was as far as I could get. I crawled to the shed because I'd been stabbed too, and my hand been cut, crooked, not a straight cut, like if I used a knife, okay? And I crawled to the shed, and I stayed there in the shed, and I took a bag off the lawnmower just to cover up because I was really freezing, and that's the last thing I remember for however many days I was out there.
And what happened when you woke up?
When I woke up, I went to Scotty's house. There was nobody there. I went in his back door. There was nobody home. I took a shower, and I called a friend of ours at the boxing gym that knew a little bit what was going on. Was one of the guys I confide in about Christy taking the gun out at nighttime and stuff like that. I called him, and I'd ask him if he would come get me, take me downtown to an attorney, and take me and turn me in.
And that was Chris.
Weird how his whole story didn't align with either of those guys' stories, huh? That's not how Scott Selkirk told it. It's not how he told it. About running into you in the street, and you obviously came up to the front door because you bled. You bled in the front entry. Did you forget about that part? I was as far as I could make it before I collapsed. Oh, this guy turns my stomach.
For who testified during your trial.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Martin, you had expressed one concern to me that I told you was not a worry, but I want you to address it with the court at this point in time. Some of the testimony had indicated that in some respects you may be a prejudiced human being. You want to address
Oh, yeah. You know what? Of everything that happened, I was probably more upset about that than anything, which I told the investigator came out to me. I have a Mexican, and the two things that Christy used on the stand, that I was prejudiced against Mexicans and black people like I am against everybody else. I have a Mexican grandson, which I stayed in the hospital the whole time he was born because they said he wouldn't live because he only weighed like 2.5 pounds. I stayed there the whole time, okay? I helped raise him. I more or less raised him as his dad, okay? I have a black great-granddaughter. I have, let me see, I believe 13 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. And I have a black, I have a beautiful, beautiful black great-grandbaby, you know.
The point that you had explained all of that is that you wanted to make sure that the court understood that you are not a prejudiced person.
Well, not whatsoever, not whatsoever. But you know, when people sit and make lies and read off scriptures and paper, you know, Christy told me personally, and I believe it's on tape, that when she blamed Sherry Lusk for what she was, when she was 13 years old, and Sherry was, I guess, is 3 years older than Christy, that they had sex. Christy got drunk. You know, this come out of Christy's mouth, not Jim Martin's mouth. Christy got drunk. They had sex, and they had an affair for a year or two. When Christy was 13 years old and Sherry was 16 years old, they had a relationship. Christy even, and I knew this, and we went to Riley, I believe it was Riley, North Carolina, and we had a boxing show, and she wanted me to meet Sherry, and I really didn't want to meet Sherry. And she said, come on, meet her. She's a real nice person, I said, okay. And I met her. And I believe maybe, I can't be sure about this. I think I met Sherry one other time. That's the only time I ever met Sherry. So if I'm that type of person, that jealous person, why did I agree to meet with somebody that, you know, the way, and Christy hated lesbians, hated them.
Keep your friends close at your enemies closer, perhaps, Jim? Perhaps you want to monitor this threat? Now Christy hates lesbians? How does Sherry fit in with all this? And wanting Sherry to meet you. Yes, you don't need a written script if you have no problem being all the fuck over the place and contradicting yourself within the matter of seconds. Then yes, I guess it doesn't matter that you didn't write anything down.
I'm talked about them all the time on TV, on HBO and Showtime. Talked about them. And she said, oh, that was just a scam we had. That wasn't a scam we had. That's the way Christy, as far as Christy's colors, she said the colors I picked for her to wear, that's not true. Larry Carrier, who owns the Bristol International Speedway, picked out pink for Christy to wear, not Jim Martin. I did give Christy the name of the coal miner's daughter, Jimmy Lennon Jr. and I. And the only reason he knows she was a coal miner's daughter is because I once told Jimmy. And he said, okay, well, you want to call her the coal miner's daughter? And I said, that's why I brought it up. That sounds good to me.
And Jim,
you know.
Regarding your sentencing here today, is there anything else you think the court should know about you before they pass sentence?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything else that the court should know about you?
You ready to shut the fuck up, Jim?
No, sir. Just everything I said was the truth. It's not makeup. It's not lies. I wouldn't plan on saying what I had to say. I was just going to say that, Christy, I'm sorry. I should have been man enough to just turn my back and walk out, and whatever happened, happened. I never would have gone to the police no matter what happened. That's how much love I had for you. When they wanted me to do things, they said, that, you know, I told too many nice things, and they said, we want you to show some hatred toward Christy. And I said, how can you show hatred towards somebody that you was your
forget your lie?
I'm getting old and forgetful. But
forget your lie there, Jim?
You idolized, you worshiped the ground she walked on. I said, you know, I can't do that. And I'm even sorry I said what I had to say today, but everything I said was the truth. About the guns, about the shooting, about the battery acid, about the 2 times we were sued. Christy got charged for assault and battery. Those 2 times, you know, all true. Which, you know, they can be checked on.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing says my statement is totally true like saying explicitly everything I said is true. It's not lies at all, Judge. It's not lies at all. And look at him just looking at the judge. Has he bought it? You believe me, right, Judge? This guy is fucking delusional. Got some cross?
I think I was like my 30s, approximately middle 30s,
So for almost half your life.
almost half my life.
And you said today that after you left the scene, after Christy was left for dead and attacked, that you just, you passed out in the shed.
I'm sorry, sir.
You said you passed out in the shed after the attack.
Yes.
And did you eat anything while you were passed out?
No.
Did you take any medications that were prescribed to you?
No.
Did you have anything to drink
No.
while you were passed out?
No.
And you suffer from diabetes for over 30 years.
Yes.
Didn't have any medicine, didn't have any food, didn't have any drink, and you magically came out of your diabetic coma.
Well, I guess sometimes that happens, you know.
Not sure I do
Something
know,
else.
sir.
You had said early on in your statement that I guess we should have pled self-defense. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I didn't know and I didn't understand there's a difference between different pleas you can do to enter in different things. I wasn't, you know, real familiar with the law like that.
Now, Mr. Martin, you still do not take any responsibility for Christy's injuries that day, do you?
Oh, sure.
Did you stab her?
No, I didn't. We stabbed her. She even said, I think we stabbed me. And I said, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. She said, yes, we did.
We stabbed her. He can't even own up. He's got to make it. He's got to make it. We stabbed her. And then he's got to try to put those fucking words in her mouth. Oh my God, they're all the same. So slippery. Won't be pinned down. Oh no, I take responsibility for what I did, but I didn't stab her. We stabbed her together because we love each other so much. It's just fucking unbelievable. Oh, I don't usually cheer for the prosecutor, but man, get this guy. Get him. Get him.
I think we stabbed me. I was laying on top of her. I got up. She wasn't bleeding. I helped her to her feet, and she started bleeding.
Did you shoot her?
No, sir, I didn't shoot her.
Did you cut her calf?
No, I would like to explain that if I could.
Well,
I don't think that, first of all, we didn't have anybody in to see, but I don't believe that's a cut. I believe that's when we're struggling.
What? What? He doesn't believe that was a cut? He doesn't even believe. We saw the fucking photo, dude. It's gruesome. I don't think that's even a cut. That's all you need to know about this guy's grip on reality and his relationship to the truth and to facts, to objective things that the rest of us can see and evaluate. Doesn't think it's even a cut. Oh, well, he doesn't think so. Let's just go home then. Unfucking believable.
Or the gun went off. I think that's where a bullet went down like that, and that's what ricocheted up and got her.
So your theory is that a bullet magically ricocheted down, cut her calf in half, bounced back, and just happened to end up in the middle of her chest.
Well, if I would have pulled the gun at point blank, there would have been a hole in her like this.
Didn't ask you about that. What I asked you is, because there was only 2 people there during this incident, right?
True.
A 9mm is not going to leave a hole like that. 9mm, frankly, not a particularly good home defense gun, although hollow point will help. Goes through, small wound, not high powered. There would be a hole like that. It's impossible. It's the impossible. Why? Because of some bullshit I pulled out of my ass. Therefore, it's impossible. Didn't shoot her, didn't stab her, didn't cut her leg, didn't do any of that. It just all happened to Christy, right? Because what happened. It all just happened to Christy somehow. He was there in the room, but nothing to do with him. He's irredeemable. Irredeemable.
So Christy has said that you cut her calf in half when she tried to kick you away, and you deny doing that.
I deny doing that.
It's your story that the gun went off during the struggle.
It's my truth.
And your truth is that the bullet melted through her leg, bounced off the ground, and somehow ended up in her chest.
My truth. My truth. He actually went there. That's his truth. Yeah, we know it's the story you're fucking making up to protect your fragile little abuser ego over here. Because you are as sickened by yourself as we are. And you just can't stand it. Can't stand it, can't change it, can't acknowledge it. He's irredeemable. And every person who got up there and said, if he gets out, he will do it again, they're 100% right.
Well, how can I explain that? Yes. I think that's what happened to her because I didn't cut her leg.
How about
So that's why I'm saying that's what I think happened, you know.
And you told the police that, or you told here today, actually, that you tried to call 911 3 times.
Yep.
I tried to call 911 and okay, I tried to call 911, okay.
Okay, how'd you do that?
Okay, what I done is I ran to the bedroom, couldn't find our cell phones in the bedroom. I could not find our cell phones in the bedroom. If they got threw around or whatever, during the scuffle, we had a bunch of clothes on the floor because I was doing the washing right before Christy come home. I was doing the washing and laundry. Could not find her cell phones. The only thing I could think is run to the bathroom and get the phone. I got the bathroom. I'm pushing 911. I come in there and she said, Jim, she said, that's the bathroom phone. It's cordless. I said, oh. I dropped the phone, or threw the phone, ran back in there. I'm trying to think that's when she had the gun pointed at me.
You're trying to make shit up on the fly is what you're trying to do. She had the gun pointed at you to get you to call 911 and you still didn't manage to call 911. Look at him fucking scramble. The phone's got all thrown around or whatever. Yeah, the battery taken out and all that. Yeah, I remember. Saw the photos. Trying to remember if that's when she had the gun pointed at me. It's because you're making shit up while you're talking. You hadn't thought this one through. And now we're gonna back away from the 3 times, right? Already had to back away from the 3 times. It was gonna be hard enough for you to improv some story here for one 911 call that didn't happen. Sure hope the prosecutor holds him down to that 3, he said. 3 times, he said. Explain every fucking one, Jim, you lying piece of shit.
She had a gun pointed at me. She had the gun in her hand, had the gun pointed at me. And had a knife in the other hand, laying on the floor. And I said, Christy, if you want to shoot me, go ahead and shoot me. I said, if you want to shoot me. But I said, I got to get help. I got to get help, honey. I got to get help. So I ran out of the bedroom, went in the other bedroom to get the phone. Well, Christy had it unplugged. I don't even think there was a line hooked up to it anymore. I forgot about that till I once got in there. I come back in the bedroom, Christy's gone.
Okay. The bathroom phone, you ever used that phone before?
Yes, all the time.
How many times did you ever use that phone when it was disconnected from the phone base?
Well, there's a jack on it that plugs into it.
How many times did you ever use disconnected it from the base, ran into the bedroom, and then used the phone from there?
No, I just grabbed the phone like that and took off. It's connected right there at the top.
You said that a phone was thrown during the struggle.
I'm sorry.
You said a phone was thrown during the struggle.
Yeah, I just threw the phone and ran back out of the bedroom.
Okay. And you threw the phone from when you were inside the bedroom.
You know what? I don't know where the phone ended up.
Forgot about that part, didn't you?
Everything that you talked about Daytona, you said that was all coincidence, that you just happened to see her in the Corvette, and you still wanted to check her out to make sure that she was safe. But none of that was planned. It just kind of happened.
I'm sorry, sir. Say it one more time.
You don't actually, never mind that. But you still today deny attacking Christy.
I did not attack Christy.
Thank you, Judge. I have no other questions.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Your Honor, thank you.
May the witness step down.
Please, sir.
Sir, step down and sit next to your lawyer.
Judge, the defense has no additional witnesses.
Yeah, this one was bad enough.
No.
Letters, memorandum.
We have the memorandum.
No.
Where's all the friends you confided in, Jim? Where's all those people? Not here to support you? Not here to back you up with your story about the passing out and the telling them how scared you were of Christy? Weird how none of them are here for this today. Almost like you're completely full of shit or something. Trying to hide behind people. Put words in their mouths. Instead of inviting them in to have their own say.
Concerning sentencing, victim status, and so on.
No, just argument on the sentence.
All right, then, we have a memorandum, and the issue concerns the sentence to be imposed based on the number of counts that he was found guilty of, specifically attempted first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder with a weapon, and aggravated
The sound is
battery
so bad.
with great bodily harm.
Okay, I'm gonna try to boost it because this is about as bad as I think I have ever heard it. Let me see if I can do anything to help this out.
With the weapon. I did get an email from Mr. Hancock with the Ivy case, so I'm assuming you got it at the same time.
Yes, Judge.
Start with you first, Mr. Vessius.
Yes, Judge, and to remind the court, the defendant was actually convicted in count one of attempted second-degree murder with a firearm. The information specifically alleged that count one dealt with the shooting involved in the case. Count two, the defendant was convicted of attempted manslaughter with a weapon. The information in count two clearly delineated that was based upon the stabbing or the use of the knife. And in count three, the defendant was convicted of aggravated battery with great bodily harm with a weapon. Again, it was specifically cited in the information dealing with the knife. As I've laid out in my memorandum, Your Honor, there are three steps that the court must undertake to decide whether or not multiple counts qualify as double jeopardy. And I'd like to go through those step by step with Your Honor. The first is, are the charges based upon an act or acts which occurred within the same criminal transaction and or episode? As I've stated in the memorandum, the test in this first step, and this is quoting from State v. Morse, M-O-R-S-E, it's 77 Southern 3rd, 748, a 2011 case from the Florida 5th District Court of Appeals.
So I'm going to pause just where we'll hear his argument, but it doesn't shock me to have double jeopardy being brought up as an issue. When he's convicted of attempted murder and an aggravated assault for the same act. It seems pretty clear they both relate to the use of the firearm. And you can't really murder somebody with a gun without, or try to murder them by shooting at them without shooting at them. Yeah, it's kind of already built into to the nature of the crime. Some states have statutes. Apparently Georgia, I think, will allow, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Felony murder predicated on assault or something like that. I might be thinking of something else, but yeah, it kind of, if the statute doesn't otherwise say, you probably have a pretty good double jeopardy argument that any conduct you committed in this aggravated assault is already consumed within the conduct that you're being punished for the attempted murder. But sometimes statutes do say specifically you can separately punish assault, in addition to any other crime and stuff like that. So really don't know what the state of the Florida law is on this one. Just not, like I said, shocked that this would be an issue. So let's see if he can clarify any of that for us.
The test for determining whether two crimes occur in the same criminal episode is whether there was a temporal break between the crimes such that the defendant had an opportunity to pause, reflect, and form new criminal intent. And I've also cited to Turner at 901 Southern 2nd 233 from the 5th District Court of Appeals in Florida in 2005 that just states the determination of whether or not a single criminal episode existed is a question for the trial court and must be based upon competent substantial evidence. With that as our standard in the first step, Your Honor, the state of Florida believes that there were two distinct criminal episodes in this case based upon the testimony that the court heard at trial. And that was the testimony of the victim when she specifically states that she was approached by the defendant as she was on the side of the bed. She was stabbed multiple times in the chest. The court had heard that testimony, heard that the victim didn't initially even know that she was stabbed until she started bleeding. Then, on top of that, was the evidence that the victim was cut in the calf area. Ms. Salters testified at trial that after the attack, she remained in the room incapacitated for a period of time. She approximated that time to be 1 hour. Looking at the evidence in the case, we know that the last telephone call between Ms. Salters and a third party was to Ms. Lusk that was testified to. That timing was testified to by Ms. Lusk. We then know that Ms. Martin gets out of the house and is found by Mr. Cole in the middle of Thompson Road, and we have the timing of that call. The differences in those times is approximately 1 hour. I point that out to the court because that corroborates Ms. Salters' testimony from inside the house as to what happened after she was stabbed. The stabbing injury did collapse the lung. The court heard the testimony from the doctor at Florida Hospital concerning that. Why I point that out is that the injury was severe and would corroborate Ms. Martin's account that she was basically incapacitated. What we have in that time period, Your Honor, is that Mr. Martin came in and out of the room on multiple occasions. Ms. Salters testified that she was asking for the police to be called. Don't let me die here on the floor. She testified that she was so severely injured that she heard blood gurgling in her chest every time that she breathed. We have the evidence in this case that Ms. Salters' BlackBerry phone was disabled and destroyed during the incident. The portion of the phone, bloody, is on the bed. The battery, the back case, was approximately 15 feet or so on the other side of the room. There is testimony in this case that the bathroom telephone was unplugged. It was a standard wall phone. While I point that out, as Ms. Salters' testimony was that the defendant came in and out of the room, taunting her with the phone, stating, "I'm sorry, the phone's not working. I guess I can't get you that help." It's our position, Judge, that after the taunting, after the incapacitating stab, after being left on the floor, we know that there's a large collection of blood in the area of the bedroom, as we've seen in the crime scene photographs. The victim, Ms. Salters, testified that after all of that, after the defendant coming and leaving the room, he then comes in with the gun, shoots her in the chest. We know that there was a spent projectile found at the foot of the bed next to the magazine. The court heard the testimony of the magazine being kicked out. We know forensically that the bullet inside of her came from that gun. The test, Judge, when we're looking at this temporal break is whether or not there was a separate criminal episode. Was there a temporal break between the acts? The testimony is that there was a prolonged time period between the stabbing and the shooting. Were there intervening acts? And I've just shared those with Your Honor. A change in location, there was no change in location, but the victim was incapacitated. And or a new criminal intent formed. And that's quoting the Parch case, that's P-A-R-T-C-H, and that is found at 43 Southern 3rd 758 from the First District Court of Appeals in 2010. Looking at those and looking at the test judges, it's our position that the separate criminal intent is evidenced due to the fact that the defendant stabs her multiple times in the chest, leaves a very substantial wound to the leg, leaves Ms. Martin there basically to die. We believe that the evidence shows that the time period Ms. Martin was not passing away, Ms. Martin was still fighting for her life, and the defendant decided to escalate the level and severity of the violence by bringing a gun in. He brings the gun into the room, purposely points at her, and discharges and shoots her in the chest. We believe that that act of shooting somebody while they're down and incapacitated does show more intent than merely trying to stab her, which he did. So we do believe that there was a separate and distinct criminal episode.
It's a specific
with
intent
the
to
time
kill.
for reflection,
To
as
get
it relates
murder.
to count 1 and count 2. So therefore, I would argue to the court that the analysis as to count 1 and count 2 being double jeopardy should stop right there. However, if the court finds that there was the same criminal transaction or episode, the next step would be step 2. Did the transaction or episode, if the charges did occur during the same transaction or episode, are the convictions predicated on distinct acts? Judge, I've talked to the court about the distinct acts elements. Shooting somebody is completely different than stabbing somebody, especially when the weapons weren't presented at the same time. So we do believe that those are distinct acts. The third step is if the charges are not predicated on distinct acts and have occurred within the same criminal episode, do the charges survive the Blockberger analysis? For the record, Blockberger versus United States, BLOCKBURGER 284, United States 299. That was from the U.S. Supreme Court in 1932. As it relates to count 1 and count 2, the state of Florida does concede that attempted second-degree murder does not survive Blockberger analysis to attempted voluntary manslaughter because they are lesser included offenses in a decreased criminal degree. So that's our argument as to count 1 and count 2. If the court, as it relates to count 3, that we've cited cases in our memorandum that convictions for attempted second-degree murder and aggravated battery do not violate double jeopardy because they contain an element the other does not, which is the Blockberger standard. For attempted second and aggravated battery, the case is Davis versus State, 892 Southern 2nd 1084 from the 3rd District Court of Appeals in 2004. And Gutierrez, Gutierrez versus State, 860 Southern 2nd 1043 from the 5th District Court of Appeals in 2003. And that review was denied by the Florida Supreme Court subsequent to that. The case dealing with attempted voluntary manslaughter and aggravated battery, those don't violate double jeopardy as we've outlined. Due to the case on that is Newell, Newell versus State, 935 Southern 2nd 83, 5th District Court of Appeals from 2006. So in summation on the double jeopardy issue, it is our position that these were separate and distinct criminal acts with time for reflection and pause, and that the shooting did constitute a separate mental intent than the stabbing. However, if the court disagrees with that, we believe that these are distinct acts based upon the facts presented at trial. Therefore, we would ask the court to sentence the defendant on all 3 counts. I do have one other legal issue to bring to the court's attention, and that concerns the mandatory minimum. Would you like to address that in a moment, or just address that now?
Yes, ma'am.
The second part that we pointed out in our memorandum, Your Honor, is under Florida Statute 775.087, which was listed in the information for count 1, known as the 1020 life law. Specifically, the crime of attempted murder is enumerated within that statute. And according to the statute in 775.087, subparagraph 2A3, because of the fact that the jury found by special verdict that the defendant actually possessed, actually discharged, and due to the discharge, the victim suffered serious bodily injury, the court is mandated to sentence the defendant to a minimum term of imprisonment of not less than 25 years and no more than life. I point that out because normally a conviction for attempted second-degree murder enhanced with a firearm makes it a first-degree felony. Normally, it would be punishable by up to 30 years. However, under the reclassification enhancement of 775087, the court could sentence the defendant to life. Thus, it's our position that the court sentencing range today is 25 years mandatory minimum at the bottom, life at the top. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Hare?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Seems to me to have a good argument on the murder
Judge,
manslaughter.
With due respect to the prosecutor, I believe that the facts were not as the prosecutor had indicated regarding count 2. I believe the testimony was that the gun and knife incident all occurred nearly simultaneously and all in the beginning of the incident. That going out for the telephone was one of the last things that occurred. If the court will remember, Ms. Salters talked about struggling over the gun. While she was laying there, she kicked out the clip to the gun, and all of that was immediately after the stabbing and after being shot. As to the double jeopardy issue on count 2, I think what the state is saying is the same thing I'm stating, that it really comes down to this court's interpretation of the facts in this case, that it is a lesser included, that the general rule is, actually the stated rule is, that if it is a level 1 required lesser, that unless there was a separate incident, it would be subsumed in the greater. And so the court would have to look to the facts here, and I believe the facts would support that this was all one incident. The intent that the state talks about, if the state's case as presented was the intent to kill Ms. Salters, was the same regardless of what instrumentality was used. And as the jury convicted, it's doing something in such a depraved way that there was a disregard for human life, and it's just a degree of that as to the manslaughter and the attempted second-degree murder. And as a result, I think the court should dismiss count 2 as being subsumed by count 1. I would make the same argument as to count 3 with an acknowledgement that the state has done a very thorough job in finding the case law that in Florida, particularly in the 5th DCA, aggravated battery is not subsumed by attempted second-degree murder in a situation as we have. There was a split in the decisions in the state for a considerable amount of time that the lesser included offense was necessarily subsumed. The 5th DCA went the extra step and said only if it was a necessary included category 1, then it would be subsumed. The Florida Supreme Court addressed in dicta the conflict and basically sided with the 5th DCA that if it's a necessarily lesser included. And I do believe that the current law in the state is that the aggravated battery does survive. However, I would argue that the circumvention of the double jeopardy clause by making a distinction about what level lessers is not proper, and in this case, the count 3 should also be dismissed, recognizing that that is contrary to state law. Judges, the minimum mandatory, as Mr. Martin has indicated, he's of advanced age and of illness. Minimum mandatories do have a proportionately harsher ramification for the elderly. And a 25-year minimum mandatory sentence in this particular case would basically make Mr. Martin in his 90s before being released from prison. There's also a due process equal protection argument, in that if he were younger, may avail himself of youthful offender status. That's not available to a senior citizen, although there are numerous instances in which seniors are overly protected by the statutory framework of the statutes. In this particular case, because of his advanced age and the disproportionate effect it would have on Mr. Martin, I believe the minimum mandatory would be in violation of the U.S. Constitution, Amendment 8, rule against cruel and unusual punishment. We're asking the court follow the recommendation in the pre-sentence investigation and sentence Mr. Martin under the score sheet. And I believe the recommendation was 96 and a half months in the Department of Corrections.
A couple of things, Mr. Hancock, so I am clear. Mr. Count 1 and 2, what is your argument as to the maximum sentence that could be imposed?
The maximum sentence, Judge, is life on count 1. I believe the maximum sentence on count 2 was, I want to say 15, but it may have been 30.
It's 15.
It's 15 years. Now, your argument is that count 2 cannot be sentenced?
Correct. Should not be sentenced and should actually be dismissed by the court as a necessary lesser included offense of count 1.
Specifically addressing Mr. Vestia briefly. I saw your memorandum.
Yes, Judge.
I want to be sure I understand your argument.
Yes, Judge. My argument is count 2 comes before count 1, factually in this case. Count 2 deals with the stabbing. It's our recollection that the evidence established that the stabbing occurred all at the same time. The defendant entered and exited the room multiple times over a period of half an hour to an hour, that the defendant, after coming and going multiple times, comes back in with a firearm and then separately, without any interaction or engagement, stands over Ms. Martin and shoots her. We think that the act of standing over and shooting somebody when they're incapacitated shows more intent or a greater evil of intent than being at close range in some sort of stabbing. We believe that the time period involved, the entrance and the exit, the defendant has to decide to re-enter the room every single time. So he re-enters the room and leaves, re-enters the room and leaves. He eventually decides to come back into the room with a gun and then shoot her on the ground. Mr. Hancock and I have a little bit of a disagreement as to what that timing was. The timing does not have to be, according to case law, a certain period, just enough to allow for reflection to commit a different act. We believe they're different acts. We believe coming and going shows the intent to commit something different. There was no re-attack with the knife.
What is your argument as to the maximum sentence as to count 2, since you are that's the primary sentence?
15 years. Count 2 is 15 years. Attempted manslaughter is a third-degree felony that is reclassified due to the use of the weapon.
Anything else you do have as a sentence?
Not as to the minimum mandatories or the motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict, which I think is basically what we're addressing at this point, Judge. However, on the PSI, I did notice 2 minor corrections.
Should have asked you that first if you had any corrections or changes or amendments. Mr. Hancock, you had 2 first.
Yeah, very minor, Judge. On page 1, I'm actually retained. And there was an indication in discussions with Mr. Martin about his mental health status, indicated that he had never undergone a psychiatric evaluation. Actually, Judge, I did have him psychiatrically evaluated at the very beginning of my representation of him. So I just want to make sure that the record is clear on that issue.
That he lied about that.
I have no objections to those changes.
All right, so that the change would be for page 1 retained, and the second would be that he was.
You got that? He told them, the people that come in that do the interview for the pre-sentence investigation, he's never had any kind of psych, but the freaking lawyer has to call him out for lying, because this is one you know about. You can say definitively, even though the rest of us know Jim is a lying sack of shit for pretty much everything that came out of his mouth during that Darvo allocution there. This one, you know real specifically, that ain't true what he said, so you had to correct it. Oh, Off on a real great start with the defendant's credibility here.
He did have a psych profile.
Correct.
Psych evaluation.
Correct. And the only other changes I have, Your Honor, are to the first page, just to reflect the accurate charges that he was convicted of.
Right.
In count one, it should be attempted second-degree murder with a firearm with a discharge. And that statute is 782.
Wait a minute. All right, and the number?
782.04 subparagraph 2.
Yes, sir.
The minimum mandatory should be should reflect 25 years on count one.
Yes, sir.
On count two, that should reflect attempted voluntary manslaughter with a weapon.
Yes, sir.
The statute is 782.07.
All right.
It's a second-degree felony, not an F1. And there is no minimum mandatory as to count two. And the only other correction I would have is in the middle section, just to reflect that Your Honor was the presiding judge on this case, not Judge Rodriguez. And the only other items that I'll have other than the PSI is the review of the score sheet, and the court will have to take action as to injury points on the score sheet. We would ask that the court impose severe injury points based upon the medical testimony. Other than
There were
that,
two doctors who testified, and I was somewhat confused when I read that testimony was that she was near death and had to be medevac from Hopta to downtown Orlando. And the doctor said that one time they didn't think she would survive because of the blood loss and the effect of the wound on her lung and the adverse effect that has on her heart and other vital function. So I'm somewhat surprised at that.
the court, as a matter of practice, has to determine the level of the injury. We would ask for the severe points, and then we have the restitution and costs of investigation and prosecution.
Do you have that dollar figure?
The restitution, I do not. The only restitution is through the Crimes Compensation Fund in Tallahassee. We made a request for that as soon as the trial was done and have not received that. The costs of prosecution in this case, and I can approach with an itemized tally that I've shared with the defense.
Give the number first.
$5,728.88.
$5,728.88.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hancock?
Judge, I've reviewed the list and I've gone over it with Mr. Martin, and we do not have any objections to the amounts. It appears that it's an affidavit as to those costs.
And there were no costs of investigation submitted by the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
Judge, in reflection and listening to Mr. Vesio regarding the court's question about count one, I think it's probably a little more interesting than I gave it first view. It's a first-degree felony punishable by 30 years, and that's because it's enhanced by the firearm.
Right.
The use of the firearm is the additional enhancement of the minimum mandatory, which would, if the court imposes the minimum mandatory, would then be completely off of the maximum penalty without, if that makes sense. I mean,
It does.
Okay.
Glad it made sense to him because I didn't get what that was about. 25-year mandatory minimum versus 30-year max based on using a firearm seems kind of normal and not inconsistent.
From the minimum mandatory, there has to be either legal reasons quantified or stated by statute, or argument, in essence, that falls into, I would call it, general reasoning. Do you have any specific, Mr. Hancock, you want to bring to my attention?
Judge, other than what I've made about Mr. Martin's age, there is none. I think it's a disproportionate imposition on Mr. Martin as opposed to someone who is of a younger age or someone who could avail themselves of a youthful offender scheme to avoid minimum mandatories.
This is so stupid. Okay, age is not a suspect class. It gets like intermediate scrutiny at the best. That's why you get to have things like drinking age limits and stuff like that. But there's nothing special about Jim being an older person convicted of a crime. You don't get a discount because you committed a crime when you're older. If anything, frankly, it's kind of worse because most people age out of violence. Most of like your violent offenders and stuff like that that are committing crimes when they're young, most of them do age out of that. So if you're the old guy committing the crime, you're already an outlier. Intermediate scrutiny just means they need to have some reason, basically, to be able to justify the distinction. And youthful offenders, less developed, more opportunities for rehabilitation, less fixed. Often circumstances are not within their control. When you're like a 16-year-old kid, you don't control your environment necessarily. Your parents do. But you're going to sit up here as a what did he say, 60, 68, 60-something year old man? What even did he say? I don't think I wrote it down. 60-some-year-old man. And he wants credit. He wants credit like a young person. Delusional. Delusional. His lawyer's as bad as he is.
That is not offered to someone of his advanced age. And I think that as a result of that, my legal argument is based on the 8th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution against cruel and unusual punishment.
Madam Clerk, the cost to be imposed by statute.
Wish the judge would fix his mic.
Cost.
Court costs were $418.
All right. And the cost of prosecution. Well, in this case, did you say the cost of prosecution was $5,000?
Yes, Judge, $5,700.
$728.88.
Yes, sir.
Any other costs, Madam Clerk? Well, that is, yes.
You're gonna add the battle charge. It's gonna be the 201 for the domestic battle charge.
Anything else? Madam Clerk?
No, sir, because he has property,
Right. But there's nothing else by statute?
No, sir.
All right.
And Judge, before the court makes the final decision on sentencing, I have not argued the difference in if the court is going to impose minimum mandatory. You have a lot of discretion, and the least that you could go under that scheme would be the 25 years,
Correct.
which is what we're going to request. Again, because of Mr. Martin's age, we'll give him an opportunity that, albeit very dim, hopefully he'll live into his mid-90s and can at one time or another get out of prison, be reunited with what remains of his family at that time.
Anything else you have, Mr. Vesey, in response?
Yes, Judge. The defendant should never have an opportunity to leave the jail. The crime that he committed is horrific, it's horrendous. He had no regard for anything. This court should have no regard on his family down the road and give the defendant any hope of a reunification. Did everything in his power to kill Ms. Martin. We don't know how she survived, but for the grace of the good Lord. And the defendant did something horrible, and he should be punished reflective of his actions and never given the hope of leaving jail while alive.
What about his continued lack of accountability?
Did you note his age, Mr. Vesey?
I have, Judge.
What did you have?
Excuse me?
What did you have as his age? He was born in December of 1943.
He's 68 years old, and it's our position that it shouldn't matter if the defendant was 26, 28, or 68. That although he has no prior criminal record, one of the obligations of the court is to look to the severity of the act in determining sentence. Because the primary purpose of sentence in the adult system is consistent with what the crime was. There is a level of protection also. The court has heard from numerous people about the fear that Ms. Martin has not only lived through, but now has because of this. We think that the facts of stabbing somebody repeatedly, leaving them on the ground, unable to do anything or even fend for themselves, and then standing over and shooting them shows nothing but a cold, callous man that should have no part of being allowed to be in our society or the hopes of being in our society. It's our job to take these people off the street. And whether or not Mr. Martin will live or not after 25 years, to us is irrelevant. We feel that the facts of this case are appropriate for the pronouncement of life, not something that might be life or might most likely lead to life.
Having heard argument of court, would you have your client come forward, Mr. Hancock?
Your Honor, which score sheet does the court want?
Sorry,
If I can approach with the score sheet. I've submitted 2 score sheets, one reflecting all 3 counts, one reflecting count 1 and count 3.
1 and 3.
I hope this judge lets him have it. I don't think he will, but I hope he does.
So what is your name?
James Victor Martin.
All right. Mr. Martin, is there anything else you want to say before sentence is imposed?
I would like to say a couple things if I could.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say a couple kind words to Christy if I can, and then say something to you.
Well, first, do you have any comments for me? You did have a chance to make a statement, so I
Okay.
assume that was your
Okay.
statement.
Okay.
But at this point, is there anything you want to say relevant to the sentence to be imposed?
I came in here with God in my heart, and I'll leave with God in my heart.
Mr.
Thank you, Your
Hancock,
Honor.
anything else?
Yeah.
Ms. Warren? I said to the trial as did the lawyers, you heard the testimony. Of particular interest to me was the testimony of Mr. Cole, who initially saw her, described her blouse as being pinkish, he thought, but actually because of blood. The testimony of the 2 doctors who testified, the emergency room doctors, one in Pop and one in Orlando, as to the severity of her injuries and the number of her injuries. There's no dispute from the doctors. The evidence is that her calf was cut. It was not struck by a projectile. The testimony of Mr. Cole was that when he saw it, it looked like a piece of meat that had been butterflied open. So there's no difference. There's no, in my mind, reasonable reason to believe that it was done by projectile. It was done by a knife. We know that Ms. Martin, or Ms. Salter, testified that she was assaulted with a knife initially. She didn't know how many times, but she knows that she was severely injured. The other thing that impressed me was the physical evidence, particularly the photographs taken by the crime scene technicians that showed the amount of blood lost, the path of the blood, the droplets of the blood from the bathroom, from the bedroom to the shower, and then the disarray in the bedroom that showed that there was a struggle, that there was a massive amount of blood loss, the blood trail leading out into the street, and then the testimony again of Mr. Cole, who, but for his intervention, she probably would have exsanguinated or bled to death. Then we have the testimony of the canine dog handler as to the condition of Mr. Martin at the time he was discovered in the shed after he'd been tracked by the dog to the shed, and his condition at that time, how he came, the deputy came close to shooting Mr. Martin because he was not responding to his orders to drop a weapon that he had. I've heard the argument, read the memorandum prepared by Mr. Vesio, and I've read the case, the avocation prepared by Mr. Hancock. I don't think it truly matters, but to be on the cautious side as to sentencing, I will dismiss count 2. This was an ongoing event. There were interruptions to give Mr. Martin time to reflect and to think, and to, in many ways, tease Ms. Salter as she was lying on the floor.
It was
So
taunting,
as to count 1,
not teasing.
I realize his age, but I don't see any legal reason to not sentence him to a minimum mandatory sentence. Recently, the Supreme Court has indicated that juveniles, because of their age maturity and lack of
Yes.
awareness of the world
Miller.
and emotional immaturity, should not be sentenced to long terms life imprisonment for crimes they committed as children. That does not apply to a seasoned adult who's had life experience, who's traveled, who's been in the military, who has had an opportunity to see what kind of injuries people can suffer because of his career as a trainer and formerly as a boxer. As to count 1, count 2 will be dismissed. As to count 1, he's sentenced to the minimum mandatory of 25 years in the Department of Corrections with credit medical.
Gives him the mandatory minimum. Which is de facto life, but still. Look at that look. He's still defiant about all of it.
1 year, 211 days.
1 year, 211 days. Do you dispute the time, Mr. Hancock?
No, Your Honor.
Count 2 is dismissed. In count 3, he's sentenced to 10 years concurrent with the sentence to be imposed in count 1. He gets credit for time served of 1 year, 211 days. Sir, you have been adjudicated guilty. Court costs have been imposed. You have the right to appeal the disposition or judgment of this court. An appeal is reviewed by a group of judges to see if I've done my job properly. If you could not afford an attorney, I would appoint one, but you must appeal within 33 days of today's date, or you waive, that is, you give up your right to appeal. Do you have any questions, Mr. Martin?
No, sir.
Mr. Hancock?
Yeah, at this time, Ms. Martin has executed an affidavit of indigency for purpose of appeal.
Based on the testimony from the trial and the fact that he has been in jail for over a year, there's no doubt that he is indigent. The testimony was that most of the assets of the family have been dissipated, and if there were any, the primary breadwinner at the time was Christy Salter. So at this time, the order, he's remanded.
Your Honor, as to the restitution owed to the state of Florida, we would just ask that you reserve on that.
All right, you're right. The cost is $418. The cost of prosecution is $5,728.88. Battery, the domestic battery's charge is $201. I'll refer him to collections court to be paid if he's released from the Department of Corrections. It's a report 30 days after release for a payment plan to be set up. Court reserve decision as to restitution. There has been no report of the dollar amount. Thank you. He's remanded.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you all.
At this time, Judge, we will be trial and notice of appeal and all of the appropriate paperwork. A copy for the clerk, a copy for
Do we get to watch him cuff him?
the orders,
No.
a copy for the state, as well as the court reporters.
They're gonna do it out in the hall.
Thank you. Court's in recess.
Normally, I don't care for like the big cost awards and things like that, but for this guy, fuck him. Take all his commissary. I don't care. Don't even care. And that's it, guys. That's it for the trial. Well, I wondered about the allocution, and I sure got my answer, didn't I? Really would have liked to have seen the judge hold him a little firmer to the fire. Just emphasizes the testimony that stood out to him. That's highly inconsistent with old Jim's excuses here and his blame shifting. The bullet cut her. I mean, and not a single person called him out. Not even the prosecutor. He's still lying. Still denying responsibility. Still coming up with these bullshit explanations and excuses to justify the unjustifiable. But I will say that was one of the most painful allocutions I think I have ever seen. You're gonna nail me down. What happened might be the worst possible tack to take in your sentencing. But I sure did like, motherfucker. You couldn't keep me down. She got back up. And that's Christy in a nutshell. That's why she's a champion. Always has been. There's something in champions that's born in them. And you can see it. You can see it come out when they practice. It's in the will. It's in the drive. Some people have it, some people don't. Christy just overwhelmingly had it. And they give credit to the Lord. The Lord made Christy as she is. But I'm telling you, it's Christy's fighting spirit that got her out of that house that day. She wasn't going to lose that fight. And she didn't. Well, hope you enjoyed this little glimpse into the true story behind the movie that I didn't love. I didn't hate it. It's definitely worth seeing, but just had the potential, I think, to be so much more than it was, in part because of how remarkable Christy herself is. But it really is just an incredible story of resilience, and just speaks volumes about domestic violence and the way that it works, the hold that it gets over people's minds and their self-belief that you could be the women's super welterweight champion of the world and still be under the psychological control of somebody who's just figured out how to push every button, how to undermine all of her confidence, how to take away all of her autonomy. And she'd been acclimated to that for decades. So, as we know, Jim died in prison, 2024. So, 25-year mandatory minimum, de facto life sentence for all intents and purposes. Oh, it's not, can't call it a happy ending because it's the kind of story that should never happen. It shouldn't happen. Really shouldn't happen. No excuse, notwithstanding every effort he made to try to find excuses for absolutely everything. And then when he couldn't excuse, he just denied. Just denied. Yeah, Christy was stabbed and shot, but we did that. Pretty nuts to just see it laid out like that. So guys, this is the end of the trial. But I have a little bonus for you. I will be coming back with one more little look at the case because I got some of his appeal. I had to go hunt down what Jim Martin claimed on appeal. What did he argue? I feel like I watched a trial where we saw the judge bend over backwards to be fair to him. Certainly at sentencing, he could have gotten more than the minimum, very justifiably, just based on his own lack of accountability. But he didn't. So I had to dig. I had to see what on earth did they come up with? How did that go? So I have that to go through with you guys. We'll have one little bonus episode to check out the appeal. But this is it. This is it for our trial coverage. And it's also been kind of a fun little blast to the past, watching what it was like to televise a trial almost 15 years ago now, back in 2012. Those the conference phone things on the desk. I remember when that was just so cutting edge in court. But yeah, I'll tell you, when it comes to domestic violence, the court may change, the accoutrements may change, but the mentality sure doesn't. Sure doesn't. And I have to say, feel a little vindicated in that position I've been taking, that denial is what categorizes abusers more than maybe any other criminal, with the possible exception of the people who do the nasty things to kids. Denial is what it's all about. And Jim characterized that in spades. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and check out until our last final little bonus to look at the appeal. But in the meantime, justice? Was this justice? Wasn't everything the state wanted. But he did die in prison. Guess I can live with that. Till next time, guys. I will see you then.